Welcome to the Unhappy Medium podcast with Sweet Bay Healing. I'm your host, Jasmine Takari, and on this podcast, we focus on the intersection between spirituality and creativity. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to keep your creative practice flowing when you're experiencing a period of spiritual disconnection or spiritual silence. So if you are an artist or creative who really brings their spiritual beliefs and practices into their work and incorporates it into the work, it can be a really tricky, sticky situation when you're feeling spiritually disconnected from what your spiritual practices are. And so something that I've noticed is that it's definitely always okay to take a break from spirituality and your creativity. For me, I've noticed that if I'm feeling disconnected from both at the same time, that's going to be a disaster for me. So typically I will try to reopen the conversation and the interaction between these two aspects of my life because they are so intertwined in the work that I create. So if I'm feeling very spiritually disconnected, what I tend to do is turn my work into kind of an exploration or a conversation of that spiritual disconnection. So, for example, one of the things I might do if I'm feeling very just cut off from my spiritual team, these are the times that I'm very intentional and very serious about inviting them into my work with me. So I'll start an art making session with kind of like an invocation, a prayer, and an invitation to them to join me in the creative process. And it might sound something like, "Hi, spirit team, hello, guides. Um, I would really love to feel your presence today as I work on this creative project," or something like, "Hi, spirit teams, hi, source," something like that. I'm very casual when I talk to my spirit, but hi, source. I would love for you to create with me today. I want to feel connected to you, and I want to feel in collaboration with you. So this is your invitation to come and work with me on this piece that I'm creating. And for me, that always helps. That always helps. Whether I feel like there are different, varying levels of feeling connected and disconnected to them, or feeling more so connected to them, I should say, when I in that process with them. So some days it feels like, oh yeah, they're really giving me energy. I'm feeling this boost. I'm feeling inspired. I can tell that that's them. And sometimes it's like they're letting me take the lead on the work that we're creating, but they're around. I can feel them in the space with me. And so it's like they're joining me and they're watching me work. Um, Rather than being in the work with me. And both are okay. And I feel like, depending on what I need and what they're feeling or what they need, that's how that plays out. So there's that. And the second is the thing that I'll do if I'm feeling just so disconnected from spirit that I don't even want to invite them into the creative process with me, or it just feels like too much of a hassle to do so. Um, the themes of the work very much become about the sense of disconnection, about wanting to have that connection with spirit or what it feels like to be in absence of that. So it really becomes that kind of focus, and it's super duper uncomfortable to just write about how it feels to have a void, or how it feels to be kind of in a I don't say a long distance relationship, but to feel that emotional distance or that physical distance from this thing that's so important to you, and to sit there and be in those feelings and describe it. But what I've noticed is even though this is the most painful state to be in, a lot of powerful work comes from this. I've written some very candid poems um, and or songs at this in these points in time where it's like, wow, I'm feeling so disconnected from you that the closest I can get to you is just talk about how it feels to be kind of without. So regardless, this is a very stressful, this can be a very stressful experience for people to be so disconnected from a part of themselves that means so much that you're feeling like your work is going to suffer, or you just really don't even want to do the work because it just has less of a meaningful connection to you and your spirit. But something that I've learned is if you follow something any of the two tips, like either of the two tips that I've suggested, or you have some other process that keeps you engaged with your artistic process, I think it's worth it because one, you're still creating. Instead of waiting for like a better mood or waiting for the inspiration, you're not getting out of practice with your work, your craft. You're moving through it and you're keeping going. Another benefit is like fighting that like perfectionism that can happen with some people. I know it happens for me where I'm like, oh, like I don't have like the perfect idea. There's not something I'm like really wanting to do. This isn't going to be going to result in a very fantastic piece of writing. So I should just wait until the inspiration comes. So much beautiful work comes out of like the messiness and the uncertainty and like the just like sometimes the unfinishedness of the work you're doing. So it's okay for the work that you're creating in this period of time to feel less maybe like less true or less whole than some of your other work. I think you're like letting some other themes shine through when you decide to create from this state. Um, it's like for me, sometimes my most impactful poems come from periods like this when I was feeling so disconnected from my team, and there's like like a bit of despair. I'm not saying we should like advocate for like horrible negative feelings and like emotional distress in your art, but like that is part of the human experience. And so I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we just stop creating in these periods because there's so much like relatableness to ourselves and to our audiences that we're missing if we're not, I don't know, if we're not creating in like the wide spectrum of like our emotional experiences. Um, and I think like you're really inviting your audience and your viewership or your readers in when you are creating from this state of like authenticity. This is where you are right now. Um, and it might be nice to actually show people where you are. Not like the pretty done up parts of you, but also maybe some of the, I know, slightly less put together versions of you and what that means for your art and how that can look. They might end up feeling even closer to you for creating art, regardless of like what you're experiencing emotionally. Um, and like sometimes like it helps you explore different themes. Like for instance, sometimes like if I don't want to do poetry, I switch to a different medium, so I'm like still working. Um, and like what's it like for like an abstract poet to try to do like realistic landscapes and in oil pastels or something instead of like writing about it, like what kind of stuff comes up. um Not to say that art's going to be good, but like maybe you expressing yourself and trying to share a message in a different way um is going to be different from anything anyone's ever seen in that particular medium, right? So it just helps you like enrich the work you're offering and the work that you're doing, and also like exploring parts of yourself that maybe you tend to look away from. So I think that's really powerful. And then there's this theory in psychology, well, more specifically Gestalt theoretical like frameworks called the paradoxical theory of change, and like how basically in a nutshell what this means is um, that when we decide to become more of ourselves in the moment, like we just embrace where we are and how we are in that moment right now in the present, we actually make space for change and transformation to show up. So by becoming more of yourself, you're actually preparing yourself, or you're allowing yourself to create change. So I think that's absolutely something that one can take advantage of in the art practice. What does your art look like? How does your art change if you are speaking to your current experience, even if it's one of isolation and like maybe a little bit of despair, maybe a little bit of depression? Like what does your art look like if you decide to engage with where you are and who you are right now? So even if it's not something you end up like sharing with the world, it is a reflection of your journey, and it shows you like on one point of your path to the next, and you can always revisit that and see how far you've grown. You can see what your story's been, and it can be really powerful. So I guess yeah, to cap it all, to sum it all up in a nutshell, like there are a couple of things you can do. And actually, there's so many things you can do, but I'm suggesting a couple. So, one, like really consider inviting spirit into your art making process, or like inviting them into the space at the very least, um, just to witness you in the creative process. That might help you feel more connected to your spirituality, um, but helps you to move through a period of spiritual disconnection regardless. And then the second is if you're you don't even want, um, you're feeling so disconnected that like asking for that invitation, like the to collaborate with them feels like it's too much. Just write about how it feels to be in this space where you're so disconnected from a part of yourself that is really important. There's like a rawness to that that could be really healing and really important for yourself as an artist, but also for your audience. So there's that as well. And I would say, lastly, again, I just want to reiterate, it's okay to take breaks from your work. It's okay to take breaks from like spirituality. Um, and I also know that for me personally, taking a break from both of them at the same time is a recipe for disaster. So I try to like make sure that if I'm feeling that one or the other, like if both of them are feeling like I'm drifting away from them, it's easier for me to like reconnect to both of them by keeping my art practice running and using some of these techniques to make sure that I'm inviting space for spirituality to come back into my life. So there's that. I hope it helps. I'd love to hear how you navigate this. I'd love to hear if you've tried either of these techniques and it did anything for you. Yeah, and also please check out Sweet Bay Healing. We have a lot of really cool options right now. We actually have a class that's going to be starting on March 6th, 2023. It's going to be online course, and it's for folks who are artists and creatives that are not right now professionals. Um, Therefore, like, you're making money from your work and you're making like a living from your work and you're trying to get into that space. So we're going to be offering like community of like-minded folks who are in the same point in their journeys. We're going to be offering like business tips, and we're going to be doing a lot of inner work to get ourselves ready for the transition and to support us through the transition from being like a hobbyist artist to like a professional artist. So if that sounds like something you're like in the you want and you could really benefit from at this point in time, please check it out. Go over to sweetbayhealing.com and check out courses. You should see Confident Creatives Collective pop up right there. And yeah, if you have any questions about it, feel free to email me. You'll see my email on the website. So head there, and thanks for listening. All right, you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.